Hello, 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 and welcome all you true believers. This is Indy Comic stream number 9. I am your host, Doc Hogg, along with my co-host, our boy, Great Lott. Hey, how you doing?
You know, I have been worse.
But you've never been better, right? All righty, let me tell you what's on the agenda for this evening. First, we're going to be, one of the comics that we're going to be reviewing is Matt Crott's Kyrie, the Curse of the Macedonian Scroll. We're also going to be reviewing Skrimshaw by Eric Borden. And we are going to be talking here in just a minute with Cody Fernandez, not Martinez, Fernandez. Make sure I get that right. Seem to have had my head firmly ensconced in my posterior region today with regard to last names. Who has created Jack Irons, the Steel Cowboy? We reviewed issues 1 and 2 a couple of weeks back and enjoyed them a great deal. Thought that it was really a good comic.
Yep.
And now he's got issue 3 streaming on Indiegogo. The link to the campaign, Indiegogo campaign, is in the description below. So do check it out and do back it. We'll talk about how long his campaign is going to go on for when we have him on here in just a minute. I should also need to mention that my comic is Tilt is also currently funding on Indiegogo. The link to that campaign is also in the description below. And Jeremy, were you aware that I had a new commercial made for my comic book the other day?
I have not seen it.
Okay, well, do you think I should share it?
I think you probably should.
Well, that's good because I'm going to share it anyways. All righty, let me know if you can't hear it, but here we go.
Okay.
Kids, it's Nacho Man Bulk Rogan. Do you want monsters, murder, and women in tight spandex? Then today's your lucky day. From Hog Wild Comic, it's Tilt. What if you were Jennifer Poehler and monsters were out to get you? Would you want the power to make kings, queens, and jacks in a deck of cards come alive to kick some ass? Of course you would. But what if the price of that power was killing the monsters who murdered your dad? Could you do it? And more importantly, can Jennifer? Find out what happens to this sexy woman in danger and rush over to the Indiegogo. It's time to get tilted.
And there you have it.
There you go. I do not feature in this commercial.
No, I'm sorry.
It's fine.
No one's featured. I'm not even featured. Let's see here. Alrighty. And
Who was the voice there?
I am actually planning on bringing that up in just a second here.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. It is. He goes by Brainiac 420. At Brainiac 420, and I provided him with a script and some images. He did the rest, the voice. Only $20. Only $20 for that.
There you go.
Not
420, just 20.
$20. Absolute wonderful price. And
I bet he used it. I bet he used it to buy pot.
It wouldn't surprise me, but who knows? Or some cheap booze. So, all righty. Well, let's bring
Cody.
Yeah, let's bring Cody in here now. Hello, Cody. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you folks doing? Am I coming in?
Yeah, you're coming in very good. Yes.
All right. Right on. Right on.
So, how much? Actually, let me. I'll try to bring up your on the screen here your campaign. But how is the campaign going?
I mean, it's moving. It's been moving for the last few days pretty well, which is great. But we got 3 days left, so it's
Okay.
to hit at currently about 36%, which is $3,600. So, whoo boy, heck of a mountain to climb, but it's possible. So I'm very grateful for you folks having me on and the chance to talk about it.
Absolutely. How are you? Is this your second 30 days? Or are you planning on extending it?
This is the second 30 days, actually.
Wow.
So this is it. This is the last 3 days of the campaign, and then we go from there at Ironverse Comics. But we'll see. I'm hoping our go from there is we start or continue production of issue 3. But if not, I'll be letting folks know as soon as whatever is decided is decided.
Yeah, alrighty. Well,
Yeah.
if you've got some stuff to share and some, some pages that you want to talk about here, then we'll ask a few questions. Please, let's go ahead and share your screen.
All right, let me see what I've got here and if I can make it easy. I think I got to pull it off into a separate window to make this work.
While you're doing that, can I ask you a few questions?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Who would win in a gunfight, Jack Irons or Clint Eastwood?
If it's actual Clint Eastwood, and especially now, depends on how light that man's.
Okay, spaghetti western Clint Eastwood.
I would still say probably Jack, because of practice. Okay. lots of time. But if it's a young Jack, about Clint's age at that point, same time period, I would have to see it. I really do not know.
Okay.
One or the other, I would say.
Yeah. So how long does he reincarnates? Is he the only person that reincarnates?
Well, so far, yes. That's something we will be exploring as we continue to go further into the series. That whole concept intermingles with how the Four Horsemen manifest in our universe. So it's kind of a big key exploration down the line, hopefully.
Mm.
Yeah, well, with the reincarnation thing and then the Four Horsemen, you have a kind of interesting East meets West mashup there.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm from. Also has a little bit of that. It's the old West had a lot of that. So many different cultures came here, whether voluntarily or not, and intermingled and had made their own place in it. And so there's always been those cultural exchanges, and this has just been my some of my interpretation of it and some of my experience in seeing it and such. So we're mainly gonna say some pages. So these are pages from issue 1 you can see on the campaign, obviously, and issue 2 also. Gorgeous artwork. Very privileged to work with this art team. They're wonderful folks. But let's see if there's something a little bit more. This piece here is being colored by Frank Martin Box Jr. Well, Frank Martin Box is the Twitter handle. Frank Martin Jr. is a person. He works for Marvel. He's been doing the current run of Wolverine, and he's done quite a bit with like Adam Kubert. He did East of West, which was another sci-fi western, came out of Image. He's coloring this wonderful Image for us. He saw our project and got a hold of me, and I jumped at the opportunity to see if he would do something with us, and it worked out. So I'm stoked for that. That's going to happen, actually, whether or not the campaign happens, which is pretty killer. And of course, we've been working on pages for issue 3 throughout the whole campaign. So these are this is a full colored page from issue number 3. This is page 1,
complete with shoulder pads.
Complete with shoulder pads, absolutely. Very, very well detailed. I love how Maxie gets into his the mutant skulls and such, just trying to make them look distorted. He did a very good job there communicating
and
that.
the shrunken head belt, it looks like, too.
Yeah,
those
shrunken
are
heads,
not skulls of normal size, unless they're animals of some sort. But who knows?
Of some sort. There's most of the animals in on Earth at this point would be of some sort. It would be hard to more thing than natural creation. Page 2, again, wonderful work. Stephen Cannon really knocked the line art out of the park. We've had the line art up for a while, but once he got his finishing touches on him, I can't wait to put the script to it and have finished.
Now that looks like that is from part 3, because I don't remember that in part 1 or 2. Is that correct?
Yes, this page and this, it comes right after issue 2.
Okay, so who is this character with the skull? And tell us about these pages just a little bit.
All right. Well, the who is this character is that's a big part of issue 3. Let me go up to, I have a place, I think, right here where I describe issue 3. It's a mysterious figure. I kind of want to keep some mystery to it because, again, most of issue 3 is exploring who this character is and why he's shown up to interact with Jack. And specifically, hopefully, I communicate very well that it's a odd way he's shown up to speak to Jack, and then what happens should be a little of a head scratcher, but hopefully in a good way. They've known each other for centuries, so they do have a history that we'll explore. He is another immortal, but his whole take on immortality is quite a bit different. He wants to be the top predator. He's Tracker, top predator. He has always seeked to be the strongest killer in existence. And so how that dichotomy comes against an immortal man, another immortal who cannot be killed, and so he can't quite call himself the apex predator when there's something right next to him that he cannot hunt, he can't wound, he can't kill, he just can't do it. So that's what we try to explore in issue 2 quite a bit. So what happens here at the end of issue 3, excuse me. At the end of issue 2, we introduce him. Jack had just finished this long journey with this little girl, getting her out of the further wastes and into New Deadwood, and actually outside of New Deadwood. Met the shaman, and at the very end, where Jack is let know that there's other things outside the hut that he needs to go deal with, and that's right where we start off in issue 2, right here with these pages. Tracker gets a hold of him one way or another, shooting towards him, and we start a chase. And Jack does not have a good day. It's a very long day, and it's not a very good day. And
Tracker is pretty much his is a match for him.
Yes, that's supposed to. Yes, exactly. It's supposed to be a kindred spirit that diverged in ideals, but you could put him up like if people familiar with Dragon Ball Z. He's kind of a Vegeta. He has the same strength. He wants to compete and such, but at a lot of points he's quite an evil thing. He's a killer. That's what he wants to be, the best killer. So it's not always a good thing, and Jack's not so much into that angle. So we explore that quite a bit in issue 3. We actually have 2 more pages that aren't on here that are in from issue 3. And Maxie has shown me some from a work in progress issue 7, which I think, or not issue 7, page 7 of issue 3. A lot of numbers. I'm not juggling well tonight.
Hello, Dead Slash. How are you?
Hey.
Didn't even know.
Hey.
I didn't even know there was a link on Facebook. Did you put that up there, Jeremy?
I put multiple links on Facebook, and I put a link on Twitter.
Oh well, I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you.
I mean, I want to get people in here to talk to Cody and see if we can get some sales for this book.
Yeah, really.
So I'm just gonna remove my screen for a second so I can switch it to a different window.
Okay.
Show you guys work in progress of page 7 of issue 3 for the heck of it. It hasn't been seen anywhere else except on our Patreon, if folks want to check that out.
It's practically a Comics and Variety exclusive.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah. So there we go. There's some work in progress. Probably 3 or 4 panels of that page of some history. The start of when Jack and Tracker met.
Cool.
Looks like someone's going after a deer there, and it looks like the deer gets it.
The deer most certainly gets it, and it leads to some bigger problems between these 2 fellas, and something a little bit bigger than these 2 fellas. I'm hoping.
It looks to me like the deer, the Indian is Native American. Sorry, God knows what'll get your video pulled down from YouTube these days. So,
true.
Native American is hunting it, but with the bang, what looks like a bang there, it looks like he's been shot. And am I correct in guessing he was shot by Jack Irons? Is that?
That's where they meet. That's how they meet exactly.
Okay.
They meet on a exchange of both men were hunting the same thing, but they weren't the only things hunting it. Is what I think will be kind of fun, and what comes up in the next few pages. And again, that's how we explore they forge their friendship, and we explore that throughout time as they understand and learn about their own immortality and how Jack has to deal with memories of reincarnation, but Tracker doesn't, and how that dichotomy and how it shapes their perspectives differently on what they're owed and who they are, and then how that splits. And that's a lot of issue 3.
Now, how does the fact that Jack Irons that he is reincarnated and Tracker's not? I mean, can you just tell us a little bit? Don't have to go into it in real detail if you don't want to, but how does that shape their perspectives? How does it cause them to differ?
Well, so how I've been writing it, and now I wouldn't be Jack. I don't have all this weight, so I can't. I try to put my head in characters like anybody who writes. So the best I can do is try and figure out. I would believe that somebody who had all this weight of suffering and all this knowledge of even perpetuating very gnarly things would have a great deal of empathy. Whereas Tracker, he gets more of a thrill out of the ability that he's unkillable. He can do a lot of very crazy things, and nothing can stop him, basically, in his opinion. Especially back in the old West time, he could take a Gatling gun and he'd be fine, and that was crazy. So that one got a little bit more arrogance, and then the other got a lot more I would say empathy, but then it drug him into a very deep depression and a very dark, unending place, whereas Tracker just built and tried to grow with the world to make sure he was always the apex. Nothing could stop him. And as the world changed, Tracker got a little of empathy because he watched nature and everything he had always known and worshipped and lived alongside and emulated, destroyed. He got a little more humble, but he also got a lot of bigger hunts, and it was a whole new world with crazy prey, and he got very happy. Whereas Jack, he just was like, oh, this is what I saw was coming. Oh, great. And it just gets worse and worse. And so in issue 2, we kind of see Jack get a little bit of an awakening by finding the little girl and connecting with her, and then kind of just bringing it back, and then throwing himself back into society instead of living apart in the wastes and taking whatever damage or whatever was happening to him at the time. And so that's kind of where those perspectives deviate, but they're stuck with each other. And that's another thing I'm hoping to continue on in the rest of this. This kind of finishes the introductory arc, but it also starts another arc. And so this coming arc, which is probably going to be issues 4 through 6, would cover more of why I introduced this, and then what Tracker actually wants from Jack, and that interaction, and seeing how that would grow and how it changes the world now that both of these beings are actually interacting with the world on a larger scale again, instead of what was happening before, which was a lot of observation.
Well, yeah, I mean, we both really liked issues 1 and 2, and there was obviously a lot of depth and a lot of very interesting things. I kind of like what you did with a different take, especially on the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. I really enjoyed that, and now that you've got the backstories to these 2 characters, and how reincarnation leads to more suffering and hence empathy with one character, and the other one's got a devil-may-care attitude, and it's just that's I like it. I think it really adds a lot of depth here. Jeremy?
I mean, I think that you kind of stuck the landing on the last book where Jack's a reluctant hero. He was pulled back off of his bar stool and into the fight, right?
Yeah.
Where kind of in brief, what journey do you want to take people through in issue 3 here?
So the journey with issue one, how I've been kind of explaining them, kind of at the beginning. This first arc is issue one introduces you to Jack's mind and his character. Issue two introduces you to Jack's world and how he interacts in it. Issue three introduces you to his history and then shows you what, or at least leads into what the future is going to hold for him.
Okay.
So it's yeah. The main thing to communicate with issue three would be a what can it's a more a character relationship issue in issue three. Besides just Tracker, there's a lot to do with Kitty, the sheriff in New Deadwood that we met in issue two. The fallout after Tracker and Jack meet again. He and Kitty interact for quite a bit, and I use that and a few other things to not only paint Jack and reintroduce a few of the things people have seen in issue one. For instance, the cybernetic horses do make a return. There's we get to see what the greater universe has inflicted on Earth. Not just we saw what the Horsemen did in issue two, and it's awful. But now we get to see what what Kitty called the angels with heavy hands also do to Earth, and how she tries to maintain that a little bit of freedom, a little bit of control over what Earth is and what humanity's legacy, what's left of it. And we try and explore a little bit of that alongside these two men's very personal history.
Okay.
Cool.
Any other questions, Jeremy?
Let me think here. Sure, I've got some good ones, but maybe not though. Okay, so who would win in a gunfight, Jack or let me think here. Who's a really good gunfighter? Doc Holliday.
Again, it depends on what time frame. Nobody can outshoot Jack in the maybe Tracker, but it depends on the weapons and the context. But with his experience, it'd be very hard to outshoot Jack if it's modern Jack. Whereas
I've got 3 words for you. 3 words. I'm your Huckleberry.
He could. I mean, Doc Holliday might be able to outshoot Kid Jack. Jack wouldn't be dead though, so he gets a few more shots in afterwards. It'd be tough. It would be tough. He'd have to catch. The life in the Old West he was immortal. So yeah, it would be very tough to. He could probably outshoot Jack when he's young, but he couldn't defeat Jack.
Okay. So how long does he immediately reincarnate, or is staggered?
So the reincarnations are there's a big Pandora's box I want to open with them eventually. But currently how I'm putting it is there's kind of a linearity that we've seen. I kind of tried to put it one step in front of the other, kind of historic context in the first issue, but that's not how Jack memorizes. It's more from feelings and maybe a quick flash or a dream, and so the time periods and the amount of lives he couldn't be able to answer. So I also am trying to leave that very vague because I do have a very big plan for that whole concept towards quite the penultimate of the whole series. It's so the reincarnations time in Ironverse comics doesn't have to be viewed linearly. Is the best way I could say it. So one right after the other, sure, but they also could all be taking place at the same time, just the same soul in different periods or experience. It's kind of more of a 5D where time's more irrelevant and seen as a consistent whole than as a journey, a point A to point B. But in terms of
if that is true, could you get Jack versus Jack?
You could. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no question at all. But the other thing that we do answer in issue 3 also is I've been talking about him being immortal and his body's unkillable. We haven't really shown that. Issue 3 we most certainly show that. He has a very bad day, like many that Wolverine's had, but without the unbreakable skeleton, and with a very different way of reconstituting the body instead of just cellular regrowth. So I'm excited to show folks how we're going to depict that too from now on.
Now down the line, is there going to be any sort of love interest? Because so many of these westerns, the lead character usually does, and if I was racking my brain to think about issues 1 and 2. I don't recall there being anything like that. And you say he's been reincarnated, so presumably there's been something like that along the line. Are you planning on bringing something like that in here, or?
Yeah, in a way. So again, we explore a relationship with Kitty and Jack in issue 3. A little bit of that. We have a discussion of kind of a history, but Jack is very apathetic to interpersonal relationships at this point. He finds them all too tragic and does very hard to avoid them. The thing I try to show is that he's too good of a soul to avoid them entirely, but he tries very hard to separate himself from those losses that he's already so many. He just doesn't want to keep adding new faces and such to it. So he personally hasn't had too many of those physical relationships, and I still haven't figured out how I want to handle if there was ever a child. I haven't gotten to that point, but that is definitely something worth exploring down the line if we get the chance.
Alrighty. Any final? Why don't you make a final pitch here for why people should back your comic, and then Jeremy and I are going to move on to the reviews we've got to do.
Right on. No, and I'm looking forward to those. First off, thank you both so much for having me. As always, I really appreciate it. The opportunities always, and just a chance to reach out to a new audience or reconnect with an old one, and just camaraderie. I always appreciate that. Second, folks, 3 days, little over 3 days to be fair, for the campaign. If you folks are interested, now's the time. If we could pull this off, it would be a wonderful thing, and trust me, you will be quite rewarded for it with what I tend to call the best of the Weird Space West. It's immortality meets reincarnation during the galactic end times, all of it while wearing cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. And we have the backing of a great publisher. We have the support of an amazing fan base. And we're looking forward to continuing, if not this round, which I'm going to be working for till the second is done, then the next round. We're not going anywhere. We're as I put in issue number 1, tenacity will get you through anything. And we're definitely going to do that.
Can you give Can you give Dead/'s question a quick answer there?
Yeah. Okay. So he is aware of his previous lives. If time is sort of simultaneous, are earlier incarnations also aware of future incarnations? You are onto something that we will hopefully eventually get into, Dead/, and it is. And to do with Ironverse Comics, there's a dichotomy also among the Horsemen and some of our heroes, and in particularly Jack and Death, that right there connects with, and I'm very excited to explore that if we are lucky enough to get that far.
Okay. Alrighty. Anything else?
No, except again, thank you folks so much, and have a wonderful rest of the show.
Well, thank you very much for coming on, and please do, if you can back this comic, please do. We want to get it across the finish line because Jeremy and I loved issues 1 and 2. They were excellent. We really want to see issue number 3, and you can still buy issues 1 and 2 in the current campaign. Is that correct, Cody?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, both of them will have exclusive variant covers to this campaign, and we will be having reprints through Wicked Publishing probably during the summer, maybe a little bit after. That's up to a lot of scheduling, but so I mean, we're not going anywhere. So, yeah. but definitely now's the time to strike while we can move forward faster, and it would make a huge difference for myself and my artistic team during these pretty rough times. So again, thank you guys so much.
I have one final question.
Ooh, all right.
Seeing as how everyone is stuck at home for God only knows how long, will you, when you have the comic done, will you send PDFs out to people in advance of getting the print edition.
We did that with issue 2 and it seemed fine. I made a point with issue 1 not to do that. I wanted to make sure the prints were out and people could see them in print first without getting spoilers. Didn't really matter that much the first time. So at least I had tried to see if that mattered. So I think with issue 3, yeah, we would be sending the PDFs out early if we got that far, yeah.
Okay.
Alrighty, thank you very much, Cody. Guys, the book is Jack Irons, a Steel Cowboy, issue number 3, available on Indiegogo. There is a link to it in the description below. Thank you very much for coming on, and hopefully we'll have you back for issue number 4.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
Alrighty, take care, sir.
You too.
Alrighty, let's move on now to our review.
There was one question I wanted to ask him, but I'll ask him later. Which is that what is Jack Irons' whiskey of choice?
Alrighty, that is a good question. Okay, why don't we talk about Skrimshaw first, because this was your choice and I read it the other day and I really, really enjoyed it. This was a lot of fun, very well put together. They have you like the cover there. This is one of those books, Jeremy, that it's really not the kind of art that I like very much, but because the story is so well put together, I actually start to find the art kind of interesting. That's how good I thought this was. And if you really want to get into the characters, it provides these fairly lengthy descriptions of them at various points in the book, especially in between the various chapters of it. Which are nice as well. So this is just a really well put together comic book. This is the opening page, and right off the bat, I was like, it's just as they foretold. The polar ice caps melted. We talk about Comicsgate talks about not having politics in comics. Well, clearly this is there. If not. The politics is not overwhelming here, but it is post-apocalyptic. Post-apocalyptic things generally tilt a little bit to the left. This one does. The polar ice caps melted. Well, what do you think caused the polar ice caps to melt? And then there's a scene later where one of the heads of a corporation says, I don't care what you do to get them out. I don't care if they are an indigenous population. We want them out so we can build there. Again, you kind of know the politics here. But, it isn't shoved in your face. And the most important thing for me here is that the agenda is not driving the story. He's mixed his politics in a little bit, but the desire to tell a good story is what drives the story here.
Well, I don't even know if it's his own politics. It's just like, but you have to have some sort of an apocalypse, right?
Yeah.
And how do you do it? Well, the ice caps melt. Notice he doesn't say how they melted, just that happened,
Mm-hmm.
I think the important thing isn't, I think that it's not so much that we want that you shouldn't have any reference to anything political or that can be viewed as political. It's that it's not propaganda.
Yeah.
I think that's the important part. And this is not a propagandistic book in any way, shape, or form.
No, it is not. I agree. Okay, so you have the main character here. I hope you remember the names, Jeremy, because I do not. Oh dear.
Hans Tanaka is the main guy.
Okay.
It's a lot of these guys are cultural mashups, and so he's like his mother is Nordic and his father is Japanese, or maybe it's the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of these people, like it's very East meets West in a similar way to what we were just talking about with Cody. So the future it's more East centric, but there's a lot of West in it as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then his sidekick here, who has the ability to basically turn people into ash.
Yeah.
Very interesting character here. He really wants to get you a sense in this. It's this post-apocalyptic world. There's not that law and order is not something that's enforced in a lot of areas. This is you almost get the kind of cantina from Star Wars feel here. Not hugely, but there's so much nice. Go ahead.
I think that's a really good description. Yeah. I mean, that is the kind of the same vibe.
And yeah, it's just, but there's so much wonderful detail here, and I think it was about this part that I really actually started to find the art very intriguing. Let's see. Then you actually have one corporation that's after him. I don't remember.
How Bond villain is this page, by the way?
Very much so. Very much so. You've got Blofeld here, and you've got one of his henchmen as well. Very and the cat. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I hadn't thought of that, but now that you mention it, it's just it seems obvious. So
yeah.
But yeah, this is one corporation that's after him, and what they're after him for is this thing right here in the middle, which is what are they referring to it as? Not a mollusk, are they? They're referring to it as a I don't remember.
I think it actually might have been. You think you might have been right.
Yeah, a mollusk. And when you don't really know we never find out exactly what this thing is or what it does exactly. It's almost kind of like a MacGuffin at this point. I mean, it doesn't really go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. It's a MacGuffin. I mean, at least at this point, it's a MacGuffin. It's the thing that everyone's chasing.
Now, this is the only real criticism I had, and I actually see this in a few too many comic books, because what ends up happening is they're trying to auction off the MacGuffin, and then a couple of villains break in and start shooting people up. He escapes and he grabs the mollusk on the way out, but you didn't know that until this scene, and it's almost a little too subtle here, like because when I was going through it the second time, the first time I read through this and I missed this panel somehow, and I'm going through the rest of it, and it wasn't even clear to me whether or not he actually had the mollusk. And then I went back. Oh, okay, he does have it. Clearly, he does. It's just that if I was doing this, I might have this panel here up in here at some point, and then have this panel just flood the entire bottom part here and make this close up and big, so he's got it. I understand that there's supposed to be subtlety. I mean, you want to do some subtlety now and then, but I mean, this is comic books, folks. Subtlety is not a comic book strong point. Obviously,
that's a massively subtle picture. Now, yeah, I agree. I think you're right that would have been the better way to display that.
Because now again, it may have been just me, but it seems to me that because I missed it, it wouldn't be that hard to miss, and so you're going through the rest of the thing wondering whether he has it, and the rest of the story makes much more sense when you know that he does indeed have it.
Yeah. Well, yes. Yeah, you're right. They should have gone big with that. It's just like it's a big deal. It's a big detail. Go big with it.
It is. All right. So later on, this is the part of chapter. This I guess would be the cover for chapter 2. Again, wonderful detail. This guy is just lunging into battle here. It is just some very, very nice art here. And then they end up splitting up. They live on this ship, and they do a lot of business from the ship. This is his wife, Hans's wife, right here. This is his
Lady K.
And this is not the first mate. This is the deckhand, I think so. Yeah. And so Lady K and the deckhand, they split up, and I kind of think she might actually have the mollusk at this point, but it's not 100% clear, I think, that I recall. But she might not. And it's interesting because, as they split up, she's got one corporation. The corporation that's after them is now tracking her and the deckhand. In fact, they get into a fight, and but later on, he's out and gets called by another corporation that asks him if he has the mollusk, and he's like wondering, how the hell do they know I've even got it? But they want to make some kind of deal with him. And when he shows up to that new corporation, this is basically what's greeting him. And so
Yeah.
you know that these guys mean business, This is just a wonderful splash page here. The head guy, and then his soldiers or goons or whatever you want to call them. It's just clear that they're not playing around.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wanted to convey it, and boy, did that convey it. So
yeah, I mean, it basically, in the future, these corporations are more like organized crime,
almost, yeah.
Well, I mean, they're like recognized organized crime, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Because governments to the ones that exist are very weak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And let's see, what do we got here? This is okay. This is where the first corporation is talking about tracking down his wife, and this is kind of why I thought maybe the wife had this thing, because it's sitting right here, and you wonder if he's handed it off to the wife or not. And so they're after the wife, and this is basically the end. This was the head of the other corporation, and at the end he's saying, let's make sure Captain Tanaka wakes up a widow. So they it just the way he left it like that, you're just wondering what exactly are these guys, what are they, especially this one, what's his angle, what is Hans, Captain Tanaka, hoping to achieve here? I mean, does he want to make money?
Yeah.
Does he have some larger purpose? It's not entirely clear. There's a bunch of open questions, but he's woven it in such a way that you really want to see what comes next. I mean, it was very, very well put together.
Yeah. So this is volume 2, and I've started reading it. I haven't finished it. There are a couple of things. A lot of the stuff the threads you're talking about are woven into this and start to answer some of your questions very well.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend picking it up, but it's not expensive. It's like
okay.
It's like $10.
Okay.
The other thing I will say to readers is, if you want a copy of the digital copy of Volume 1 to see if you would like this, then Eric Borden has said, look, I know people are stuck home, they're bored, etc. Just drop me a line on Facebook or on Twitter. Tell me what your email address is, and I will send this to you, and you can read it free of charge for yourself and decide if you want to continue the series. But you get a good chunk. It's not just like one issue. It's 3 issues are collected in the first volume. So I would very much recommend people do that. The third thing I would say is that there are a lot of improvements that happen. I think the art is very rough to start with. It gets slightly better and slightly, like, it's gradual, but he gets better and better and better and better. By the time you get to volume 2, it's quite a bit better, and the coloring is also quite a bit better. So I mean, like, let me see if I can pull out an example here. Well, problem is I don't think people would see this as well.
I might be able to bring you up. Yeah, I can give you solo layout right there. So,
all right. Here's a splash page for you. You see that? Okay.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think it's a little better than he's.
Hold it up just a little bit because we can't see part of the lower half. Okay. Yeah, well, you're good.
All right. I think he's gotten more control of his lines, and I think the coloring is better.
Mm-hmm.
So just wanted to show people that that improvement there.
Does look a little sharper. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah. Anyways, look, I think this is a great introduction. I think that you see improvement throughout, and you always want to see that. But you start out with something that's really rough, and like Doc's initial reaction is like, "Oh, I don't know." And then as he gets into it, you start to groove on it. Like you want to be listening to some really happening music, whatever you prefer, while you're reading it or something.
That was the same with Earthbound. Narwhal's Earthbound. Yeah. I didn't care for the art, but man, the story just dragged you right in after a couple pages. Much the same here. Much the same here.
Yeah. So, I really like this, and I think it's for the price of no dollars and 0 cents. I don't know why you wouldn't just write Eric Borden and say, please hook me up with this, and I want to read it and see if it's my thing.
Do you know his email? Can you say it on online?
I mean, I don't have his. I could find his email, but
Okay.
it's
all right.
his Twitter. Just a second. I think it's just Eric. Real quickly here.
Excuse me.
He's not hard to find on Twitter.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't we move on? Unless you have anything else to say, why don't we move on to Kyrie, the curse of the Macedonian? Was there something? Oh yeah. Okay. That was.
Yeah. You can just search Eric Borden on Twitter, but he's at 100 Proof EB. So at 100 Proof EB.
Mm-hmm. All right, Kyrie, the curse of the Macedonian Scrolls. What did you think of this, Jeremy?
I liked it. There are some things I don't like about it.
There are things that I don't like about it, and overall, I just didn't like it.
Okay.
So
I don't like the coloring. Strikes me. If you look at through the coloring, some of it's great, but some of it just strikes me as very Portland. They tend to go sort of a pastel coloring scheme down there, and I don't like that. I did though something with this series that I did with Skrimshaw, which was that I read ahead after this issue. You can back the second campaign, and what Matt Krotz is doing is he's sending people PDFs in like every other week or something. You get a PDF of a chapter or two, and so you can see where the threads go. And I thought that he actually he's doing a good job of pulling that together. I do think that this can be confusing. I read it again. I read it back in the day, and it was fine. But I read it again today, and even knowing what I knew afterwards, I still had to strain to kind of understand some of what was happening in the story. That's. Scott, you talk about it for a minute here.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the opening page. There's an emperor here. This is supposed to take place in ancient Rome.
I'm going to mute myself for a second here, okay?
Pardon?
I'm going to mute myself for just one
Sure,
second.
absolutely. So this is supposed to take place in ancient Rome. This is the emperor, and Jeremy says some of it's confusing. I found a lot of it confusing. Like right off the bat, okay, the main character, this woman here whose name unfortunately I cannot remember. She is after something called the ruby that's was supposed to be in this thing, and she's gotten it, and she's talking to these two other thieves who've kind of barged in, and she says, well, we're going to go to this ship called the Valerian, and I need your help. It's the Red Lady of Babylon. But it's never clear to me why they are going to the Valerian other than they're looking for some loot, which I guess would be a good enough reason. But then you have scenes like this, whatever this kind of creature is here, he confronts the emperor, and there's this and the creature is looking hard and looking like he's been hit with something. And the next page but he's holding the dagger. So I don't know, on this page, did the emperor stab him, or did this guy stab himself because he's holding the knife? And why would he hold the knife? But then the way
he says, "I'm so sorry."
Yeah, he says, "I'm so sorry." So you suggest that he did, but why is the creature holding the dagger then?
Because he stuck it in him.
Well,
and then the creature pulled it out. I understand your confusion. I get it.
Yeah, well, it looks to me, okay, that makes sense now, but I suppose, but yeah, I wasn't understanding. It would have made more sense if I guess because he's wiping his hands here too, but it's also the confusion of why is he stabbing him? What is this? What's going on here? And we never really get a very good explanation for that in this book.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Then
I think it goes back to your you can be too subtle, right? And I think that is too subtle. If you're gonna stab someone in a comic book, stab someone in a comic book. Don't have them pulling the knife out like I was stabbed.
Yeah, the red, and then they're on to the Valerian. The Red Lady is a key. Valerian ship will show us where to find the lock. I mean, it was very cryptic, and it's like, what? And then they get on the ship, and what ends up happening is they go off sailing, and I don't even know why they bother doing that. The Roman Navy catches up to them, and just with this woman and the two, brutes, the looters, they are able to, and one, I think, no, they're able to beat down the Roman army. I mean, I which to me was not particularly believable. And they get boarded, and then there's a stowaway below, and he does something with this Red Lady here, and he casts some spell or something, and it fires off here, and I think it blows up the this lighthouse, which I am assuming is the lighthouse of Alec. Pardon? What did you say?
Specifically, what happened was he threw it into the. First of all, can you hear me or not?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, all right. It illuminated because it's just very bright. And then he threw it into the water and exploded and did that damage.
See, it wasn't clear to me that he threw it into the water.
Yeah, it wasn't clear to me on first reading either. It took a second reading to get what had just happened.
Okay, all right. And then there's this character here who I think is one of the fainting soldiers, but it took me a while to figure out that this was a soldier. I had to go back and forth because he looks exactly like this guy here, the stowaway. He looks almost exactly like him. And then it's not entirely clear to me, why is he fainting and passing out? Was he stabbed? Well, there's no blood here. Was he shaken by the explosion? Well, none of the other characters seem to be. What happened to him?
You're absolutely right that some of the characters look too alike, and that leads to confusion. There's also when I understand that there's always going to be more that a creator knows about a story than we do, because it's in their head, right? And they're getting their head out on here, and you're never gonna know as much as the creator does about his story. But but
you need to know enough.
You need to get a little bit more out in a little bit more organized a way than he always does.
Let me ask, since you've read ahead, does this soldier play any role later on down in issue 2?
I believe yes.
Okay, because otherwise I wonder why they'd even waste their time, since presumably all the other soldiers have been killed. 10 Roman soldiers have been killed by one woman and 2 thugs.
Well, yeah, there's a it's sort of an important point that he serves in the beginning of this next story. But yeah, I mean, I get why you're having him. I just don't. I think that some of the characters look too alike, and so you're like, who is this?
Yeah, and granted, I know it's a comic book, but somehow they defeat these soldiers without any magic. I mean, presumably she's capable of some kind of magic with this thing. I can understand that if they had defeated the soldiers that way, but you just 3 people, one of them being a woman, you do not defeat 10 Roman soldiers. All right, it does not happen.
Zoom in on me. Sure, but there was a big explosion. Right, and so
but they were this thing into the water. They were already defeating the soldiers prior to that.
I mean, they were fighting, and they were winning, but maybe. But then this gets thrown into the water, and it just throws soldiers completely off guard, right?
Okay.
And so, I mean, like when shit blows up, and it's destroying major architecture, I can see them going, oh dear, and that being the distraction that was needed. But again, it took a second reading for me to get that.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
I think it should have been clear on first reading.
All right. Hang on here. So let's move on here. I don't know why that's in there. Did I have anything else in there? No, I guess I did not. Okay. Well, the other thing was that this the thing, he also has a scroll that is, I must have left that up there. That's okay. A scroll that was part of it's supposed to be the curse of the Macedonian scroll, and the scroll comes in very late in this thing, and I don't even remember it doing that much damage. I mean, she was fighting the two thugs because they want their loot and trying to take over, and I think the scroll, whatever whatever magic that this guy, the stowaway, can get from it, I think he uses it to kind of subdue them. But it's like suddenly you're going from this red, this red lady, this ruby thing that supposedly got all this power to at the end, all of a sudden you're now bringing in the scroll. Well, if the title is The Curse of the Scroll, the scroll should kind of be a theme throughout. It should be there at some point in the beginning or something like that, because I'm all focused. After a while, I'm all focused on this ruby, this red lady or whatever, and I'm figuring that's going to be the center of it. And then next thing you know, oh, now that's gone. The scroll comes in. It's not entirely clear what the scroll actually is capable of anyways. So
Doc, they switched MacGuffins on you.
There you go. And I was unfortunately not a fan of this comic. It just did not do it for me. I don't know, maybe I'll pick it up for a second time at some point and I'll start enjoying it more, but usually if I haven't enjoyed it the first time, I'm not going to enjoy it the second. So
yeah. We can look at some of the chapters that come after it, and you can decide if I'm full of crap or if actually that does sort of pull it together, or maybe both. It could be both.
Well, you're usually full of crap, but it's just a matter. It's just a matter of to what degree are you are you more so than usual or less so than usual? Usually when you do this channel, it's much much less so than usual.
Thank you, usual. Yeah.
So, at any rate, okay. Well, anything else you want to add at this point, Jeremy?
Well, I mean, I would say that, look, if people want to, you can get this fairly easily. Number 2 is on Indiegogo, and you can get it in digital, and you can get all the follow-up stuff in digital, fairly cheap. And I think this would appeal to some people. I did back the second one, and I am at this point not sorry that I did. We'll see where this story goes.
All right. Well, I'm glad you enjoy it. I guess we'll just kind of have to, at least on that one point, agree to disagree. And I think we can wrap it up right now. Okay.
Sounds good.
All righty. Thank you very much, Jeremy, for being here, and thank you all who showed up to watch. And do back Jack Irons. If you haven't backed it, go back on the replay of this and see what Cody Fernandez had to say about it. I think it would really be worth your time. Jeremy and I, you can go back through Comics and Variety, see the review we did of Jack Irons 1 and 2. We both enjoyed it a great deal. It's very, very, it's definitely worth the money. So I would definitely, if you can, like I said, the link to it, the link to the Indiegogo campaign is in the description below. Do back it. It's only got 3 days left, and it's still got a ways to go. So get on it if you can.
Yep.
All right. Bye, everyone.